I know. I'm just looking at the bridges, so they're all new. They're not rusted and rotted. They're just so pretty. I mean, this is another brand new one. And it's just beautiful. Of course, they have a lot more population in a small area, but still, it's just... Well, the Netherlands is like 6 million people. Something like that. I'll go check there. I'll go check.
No, pass me.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's been at sea now for 6 months. So. Yeah, he's trying to prevent scurvy. That's why he gets the line.
She said probably were 4 miles from 4 miles. No, not in miles.
Do you want me to move over? I can sit over.
No, dear, I'm happy to be here on the end. I'm happy to be here on the end.
So, is this... Oh, we okay, I'll show you what the hotel is. Our hotel is... New Central Station. Here's Mr. Dock.
We should be somewhere right here.
We're very close to Quebec. I have to find the district. John, just be patient, please.
I'm sure it is.
Whatever you guys tell me, I'm okay with it.
But that's not the street. That's not the street. I know the street it is.
But this is the road that they just... It showed it on the map as being that way.
I never imagined that there was such a story like this.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all this morning? Super relaxed, I guess. Nice wake up, no rush. Nobody saying 15 minutes and be on the pier. No, it's all fine. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did hand out maps. If you don't have one, I'll come around again at the end of this quick presentation about the Golden Age, because I'll talk about Amsterdam, at the end of my little presentation. Just to let you know, of course, we are officially in the Netherlands, in case you don't have a mobile phone that beeped and told you welcome to the Netherlands. We are in the Netherlands. We crossed over into the Dutch waterways at around about 8:20, I think it was approximately. And we're on what's known now as the Waal River, W-A-A-L, the Waal. And we'll be on the Waal until around about 12 o'clock. And then we move on to the Boven-Meerwede, and then that leads us on to the Noord, and then the Lek, which brings us up to Kinderdijk. So those are the couple of rivers that sort of surround that area of Kinderdijk, the Noord and the Lek. And then after we cast off this evening from Kinderdijk, we'll be on the Lek for a little while until we get to our last lock. So there is one more lock. And once we pass through that lock, we'll be on the main Amsterdam Rhine shipping canal that'll take us up to Amsterdam. So that's sort of more or less our cruising for the day. So ladies and gentlemen, this morning I've got a presentation to talk a little bit about this magnificent period in Dutch history known as the Dutch Golden Age. By the way, are you okay with the curtains open and the screen and so on like this? It's such a shame to close the curtains and sort of miss out on some of the views. One of the things that fascinates me before I start about the Golden Age is that, you know, we're travelling and you can see the rooftops just beyond the dikes on either side of the river, which is absolutely incredible. You'll notice that as we're sailing along. And I'll talk about that after lunch, about the dikes and the sort of water management system. Anyway, back to the Dutch Golden Age. So this was a period in Dutch history that spanned much of the 17th century. And it was during this time that military trade, their prowess, their art, were among the most acclaimed in the world. And this morning we'll have a look at some of these great artists, these great painters known as the Dutch masters, as well as some of the accomplishments of this period. So up until the 16th century, what's now known as Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and parts of northern France were all part of an area that was known as the Low Countries. They were part of the Holy Roman Empire and had been ruled for 300 years by a member of the Habsburg family. Now, in the 16th century, this ruling family changed and a new Holy Roman Emperor took his seat. That was Philip II of Spain. Now, he was a devout Catholic. Under Philip's command and rule, this Spanish Empire reached great heights. But together with this great expansion came high taxes and state bankruptcies and, of course, the Protestant persecution. These combined factors led the Dutch to rebel against Spanish rule in 1568. And struggle for Dutch independence actually coincided with many other religious wars that were taking place throughout Europe as a result of the Protestant Reformation and this friction between Catholics and Protestants. Now, the Netherlands wasn't only influenced by the Protestant Reformation and the teachings of Martin Luther, but also by a more contemporary theologian, the Swiss theologian, John Calvin. Now, with this rise of Calvinism, many religious images and religious artwork was destroyed. And here we can actually see a counter-reformist pamphlet of this period, depicting these Reformation leaders working alongside little devils, trying to destroy these rich church interiors. Even today, if you visit the Netherlands and you get a chance to look in some of the churches, you will see that the interiors are nothing like as grandiose and as decorative as we've seen throughout Germany. They are pretty sparse. And another Calvinistic influence is reflected in this Dutch trait of frugality. Do we have any Dutch people here before I go any further? Okay, well, let's put it really plain. Stingy. They're a little frugal, and that's something that they admire. They're frugal. They dislike ostentation, and it even goes through to parents sort of bringing up the kids. They won't praise their children too much because they don't want to instill in them this bad trait of vanity. Now, the leader of the Dutch revolt was Prince William of Orange. He was initially loyal to Spain, but with the beginning of the Spanish persecution and the Inquisition, William joined the Dutch uprising. He was quite successful. They won several battles against the Spanish under his command, and in 1580 he was declared by the Spanish an outlaw, and he was assassinated just 4 years later in the city of Delft. Now, I know some of you are staying in the Netherlands after we finish our trip. Who's staying in the Netherlands, just out of curiosity? Okay, well, I know you've got a lot to see and do in Amsterdam, but if you do get a chance, it's well worth to pop in, or to try to squeeze in a visit to this beautiful city of Delft, not only to admire the wonderful pottery and porcelain that's created there, and you can visit Royal Delft, but also to visit the cathedral in the centre of Delft. It's where you will find the resting place of the Oranges, the House of Orange. They're all buried there. Now, the Dutch Revolution lasted for some 80 years, and it really created a very cultural and economic divide in the Netherlands that was marked geographically by the River Rhine, the River Meuse that crossed the Netherlands. So to the north, it was predominantly Protestant. It was here that many skilled craftsmen and tradesmen relocated, and to the south it was basically Catholic. And even today you still get this north-south divide, Protestantism more common in the north, while the Catholicism is more common in the south. You know, we all have this in our countries, this north-south sort of divide, I guess, and we talk about what the northerners are like or what the southerners are like. Well, in the Netherlands, the southerners say, yes, that the northerners are very sober. They're a little bit more stingy than the southerners, while the southerners are much more fun-loving. You know, they celebrate carnival, they have the, pre-Lent, they have this wonderful carnival parades and so on, and so they're sort of a bit more lively as such. It's even reflected in their accents. The southern accent is a little softer. It sort of lacks that very hard, the hard G, well, I clear my throat, sorry, that hard G of the Netherlands. You know, you hear that accent, and in the south it's not as pronounced, while in the north they do have a very, very strong G sound. Now, the struggle for Dutch independence is reflected in the Dutch national anthem. Did you know it's the oldest national anthem in the world? And it's sung as if being, or it's written as if being sung by William of Orange himself. It reflects his internal struggle, that he was initially loyal to Spain, but then really stayed true to his homeland and true to his people, and leading them through this revolution. Now, by 1581, the Dutch had ousted the Spanish armies from the northern part of the Netherlands. They declared independence from Spain, and they established what became known as the Seven United Netherlands, with Protestantism as the dominant religion. The fighting did, however, continue for a further 67 years, and ended with the signing of the Treaty of Munster, which we can see depicted here in this Golden Age painting by Gerard de Bourg. This was a landmark in Dutch history because it gave credence to their state and recognition to this Dutch Republic. Now, once the war with Spain was ended, the Dutch became the most powerful naval force in the world, a place that had once been held by both the Spanish and the Portuguese. The Dutch dominated trade to Asia, as well as inland Europe via the Rhine. Colonies like New Amsterdam were established in the Americas, later traded with the British and renamed New York. And those in Indonesia and Suriname really allowed this Dutch merchants to acquire vast riches and wealth. And here we can see a naval painting by Jacobus Storck, who was one of the most in-demand naval painters, depicting this massive fleet of ships with their sails hoisted, ready to set off across the seven seas. Now, it was at this time, 1602, that the Dutch East India Company was established. They held a monopoly on trade with Asia that lasted over 2 centuries. They brought back vast riches of spices, silks, porcelain, and many other things. They were the world's first multinational corporation, founded by shares that had been sold on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, the oldest stock exchange in the world. And in order to increase and to finance this growth in this company, the Bank of Amsterdam was created, a precursor to the world's first central bank. Seafarers They were great heroes. Here we can see one of the most famous, the Admiral de Ruyter. You know, if you show this picture to a child today, even in the Netherlands, he will instantly recognize his face. His face graced the 100 guilder notes through until the 70s. I have to say, it looks better in the painting than on the guilder. But you will see his name dotted throughout the Netherlands in street names, the names of quays. There is actually a docking location in the centre of Amsterdam named after him. He commanded 3 out of 4 of the Dutch Anglo Wars. Remember that the battles were always at that time fought at sea. And here we can see a depiction of this, the ships ready to set sail to partake in one of these battles with the 7 provinces, the flagship of the Dutch fleet. Now, this growing prosperity in the Netherlands was being, the Dutch Republic, was being led most unusually by a merchant class. These were sea-going traders. This led to a rise of really a very wealthy middle and working class. Now we remember that due to Calvinistic influences, church art and decoration within churches was prohibited. But these artists at the time then began to create works for those with the means to buy. So we were talking about people like seagoing traders, all the way down to blacksmiths and shoemakers. This wealthy middle class sustained hundreds of artists in what became known as the Dutch Golden Age. Unbelievably, within a period of about 20 years, more than 1 million Dutch paintings were created. And some of these great names that we now sort of revere, there was so much painting, such a glut of work on the market, that these great painters often had to supplement their income with a second job because painting a picture just didn't, give them a living. Now, the Dutch Golden Age developed out of 2 key influences. So there was the Baroque, minus its ostentation and populism, and the Flemish realism. Flanders had historically been the artistic centre of Europe, but with the ending of the 80 Years' War, this shifted to Amsterdam and the Netherlands. So, with this rise of this wealthy middle-class patronage, the artists of the time began to create paintings for those with the means to buy, and they created a sort of a genre style of painting: landscapes, seascapes, portraits, tronies, still lifes. And they would specialise in a particular genre in order to identify themselves to potential buyers. So let's have a look at some of the different styles, the different genres of the period. So first of all, we have the classic portraits. Here we can see a portrait, the Syndics of the Amsterdam Goldsmiths Guild, painted by Thomas de Keyser. He was one of the most in-demand portrait painters until he was eclipsed by Rembrandt in the 1630s. Now here we can see the Syndics of the Amsterdam Goldsmiths Guild. So first of all, we know these gentlemen are wealthy, but in line with the Calvinistic influence, they're very somberly dressed. You might be able to make out, or just that they are all in black. They're holding just a few tools of their trade in their hands. A typical style of a portrait of the period was to have all the faces of the people that were in the portrait even, so that you could view them all clearly. Somebody seated, perhaps a couple of them seated, somebody with an arm on the back of a chair, and maybe one of them standing. Very importantly, there was never a smile in sight, because it was considered